Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Simulationist. This is the 204th iteration of the show, recorded on the 2nd of August, 2016, and my name is Josh Trelevin, and with me, as always, on the other microphone,
co-host extraordinaire, Ryan Kirkby.
Hey Ryan.
Howdy-o.
How's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad. I think we can get going straight into some news, because we do have some interesting little news.
Okay, let's jump into this podcast.
I think the big one is not the first release, because they did have the early release for the Kickstarter backers, but the full release of the Starbound game.
Starbound video game. I mean, big, but yeah, sure. I mean, I'm excited about it.
Well, that's the thing. It's just like a 2D kind of, like a Minecraft-styled sort of game.
Yeah, it's like Minecraft and Terraria and whatever else you want to...
It's in space. You're kind of like a makeshift Green Lantern kind of person that has to escape the Earth, and then you get crash land on a planet. And then, once you get off the planet, you can enter a hub, and there's, random... Everyone's got quests for you. Everyone. And there's, procedurally created dungeons and a big bat to fight and gear to upgrade and all that fun stuff. And the best part is this was originally a Kickstarter sort of thing, and thus is because it's become such a great thing with enough word-of-mouth sort of play about it, it's really being like a darling of the Kickstarter. Because let's face it, every once in a while you hear a story about something falling through, something going bad. I think the big notable one for bad Kickstarters was the Goblins game. It was supposed to be a card game based off of the Goblins webcomic, and the guy just took the money and left, just up and ran with it.
Really?
Which caused a nervous breakdown for the guy who does the comic. And so his comics had a bit of a hiatus as it took some time to realize that such a betrayal of trust, how it could have happened. And then it was slow updates as he decided, you know what, I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to make this, I'm going to release this without this guy's help, without the money. I'm going to do the best I can. Which just goes absolutely miles to establish the nature and the character of this guy. People call him, oh, he's an artist, he had a nervous breakdown, oh my goodness, such a horrible life. No, man, no. This guy, it shook him to the core, and then he decided he's going to do the right thing without the money. He's going to, be there when he could have said, sorry, the guy who was supposed to do it, the company just took the money and ran. So he could have absolved himself very reasonably of responsibility, but he didn't. So yeah, you hear bad stories like that kicking around for Kickstarter.
Okay.
So it's really nice to see something like Starbound hit and deliver, and apparently it's still not completely done. They'll be adding more stuff as time goes on. Mm-hmm. But it's got its official release. It's getting great praise, great reviews, and even people that aren't too big in the genre find something that they like about it. Say you want to, not just fight the big bad, you want to start up a space colony on a planet. You can do that. There's a way for that. Yeah, you get yourself people, and those people will offer you quests and all that, but bam, all of a sudden you got rent coming in.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's very nice. I'm quite digging it. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. Have you?
I haven't played it myself, no. Just seen some gameplay footage on YouTube.
I've seen a lot of reviews, and they're all speaking quite, especially for something that's not being released by a major publisher. This is going great, and this is also a nice feather in the cap for the indie game sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So Starbound, watch out for it.
If it sounds like anything we've described sounds like a fun little game, give it a look. See, give it a Google search, a Bing search, and read some more reviews, see some screenshots, see the gameplays on YouTube, and if you like it, pay the money and get it, because it's no longer in pre-release, it's no longer in early or alpha. You can get a fully functioning copy. Bam, bada boom, bada boom. Hooray! In other bits of news, this I guess is only a bit of a minor news story.
Okay.
Chapman's Ice Cream. I guess this might not be something most people know. It's a Canadian brand, Chapman's Ice Cream, right?
Chapman's Ice Cream. Sponsored by, well, we're not sponsored by.
Well, if they want to either give us money or ice cream, well, I'll definitely not refuse.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing I've been seeing is their commercials. They've got a story about two little kids that go on a magical adventure in Chapmania. which is just, like
Is that what they call it? Okay.
That's literally the name of the place. Chapman's Ice Cream.
Chapmania.
Yeah.
I like that, how it's mania.
Yeah, it just kind of work itself into something a little bit better than just, like generic land named after our product. But they have 2 kids, Ashley and Francis. And I've had this discussion with my daughter a few times. Which one is the boy and which one is the girl? Because it's a little boy, little girl, going off on this adventure. And she says that Ashley is the boy and Francis is the girl. But when they say their names in the commercial, it's the other way around. So the names appear to be not really all that, like either cohesively tied to the character, because they're gender neutral names, or
they can apply to either gender. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to wind up looking this up, but it appears as though they've created a story where as long as these 2 kids are together, they can always refer to Ashley and Francis, and then you can just decide which one's Ashley and which one's Francis, and like whatever heteronormative like way your brain works. Congratulations, that's how it works.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just kind of dig that, how they found a really stylish way of making it so that it's like, oh, this one has to be the boy, this one has to be the girl, but it's like, oh, that's a girly name. It's like, no, it's Ashley and Francis. Which one's Ashley? I don't know. Maybe you've seen Evil Dead like I have, and you know that Ash Williams is the manliest man there could ever be, but he's named Ashley.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like my dad's, my birth name is Francis, and he's a guy that pulls his own teeth. When they go bad, he doesn't go see a dentist. He puts a little Anbesol on there, gets a pair of pliers, and pulls his own tooth. That's pretty damn manly.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Francis is a pretty macho name in my opinion.
Yeah, but it can be a girl's name, too. Exactly,
as can Ashley.
Yeah.
So, I'm at this weird perspective where thanks to, the names of people I've known historically, I'm on the razor's edge. Which one's Ashley, which one's Francis? I could apply to either. They're both really manly names, So I just found it to be a really interesting style that they went with. What name should we choose? Gender neutral. Then we just, say their names together, and whatever one they want to apply, they can apply to. So if you got a girl named Francis, then I guess the girl's name is Francis in this story. You got a boy named Francis, well, the boy's name is Francis in this story. I think that's just quite an interesting little spin they've worked with for what would otherwise be, a nice little just generic story about kids on an adventure. So, for an ice cream product.
Right? I wonder, I guess it works because it's because of the commercials, right? And they can do them in very short
chunks.
Well,
you can go to the website and all that, and they'll tell you other little bits, and you can see the stories that develops.
Yeah, but I imagine, if you had anything longer, short story format, any kind of book or anything, you probably couldn't keep that up.
It would have to be told in the third-person perspective, because that way you could avoid Ashley said this and Francis said that.
Well, yeah, but also the characters couldn't develop sort of, they couldn't have a relationship with each other too much because you couldn't have them talking back and forth and calling them by their other first names.
It would have to be, it's a very visual format. Otherwise, you'd have to do wording for what's that, says one. I think it's a trapped fairy, says the other. And then just never refer to which one started speaking and just let you decide.
Yeah.
So
maybe you could do it.
It could be, but it would be a lot of extra work to do on that sort of thing. So I found it to be quite interesting how they've decided to let your brain do a little work on this.
Well, yeah, but what I like about it is that commercials are often little bits of microfiction. They're very tiny. You fit an entire narrative as story into something that's 30 seconds long.
I'd be happier about that if more commercials didn't feature incredibly stupid people.
Yeah,
I gotta say, when I'm listening to commercials on the radio, they are the dumbest people outside an infomercial I have ever heard.
Yeah. And the other thing is, every time if you can take a little shortcut, not actually, you don't have to identify which kid is Francis and which is Ashley. Just say it's Ashley and Francis.
This is a story of 2 kids, Ashley and Francis.
Then that's a part of word economy and part of being able to compress a story down into something that you squish everything into the 30 seconds and make something that's entertaining but at the same time sells your product.
Well, at least evocative, because I believe the main point is to try and direct you to their website.
Yeah.
You're there to see the kids on their adventure, and then, hey, while you're there, look at all the varieties of ice cream we have.
And I guess you get people like us talking about it somehow.
Well, because we focus on fiction. This just happens to be a very interesting twist on commercial-based fiction, commercial media for the fiction, right?
All right, yeah.
So yeah, it's just something I found interesting that we managed to get some legs out of on this story. So
Okay.
So yeah, that's basically our news things. I do have a conspiracy notion this week. This one was a nice little bit of a doozy. It just kind of popped into my head one day.
Yeah, okay. Let's hear it.
You can't trust schools. Because schools are done by like the authority. And thus, they have a vested interest in teaching you things as they want you to know them, not as they might actually be or would be in your best interest to know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, like I think I can think of lots of examples that are...
Oh, we can give a few, that. My concept was that, because when it came to me, I was like reading a story about how supermarkets aren't selling you the cheapest stuff in all the times. What they would actually try and do is want to sell you the house brand where they get a better profit margin. And so if it winds up being that you have to pay a little extra for them to get their much wider profit margin, then they will not sell you the cheapest good. Therefore, they don't have your best interests at heart. And then it occurred to me, it's like, oh, that's just like where they're trying to teach you things. It's only what they want to teach you. You can't trust schools.
Yeah, well...
But you have some real-world examples rather than my extrapolation example.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead to, what do you call it,
bit of an extreme
dystopian
example?
Future example,
Okay.
because I thought of it because you brought it up, the products and stuff, in that often in movies, I think Idiocracy has this, but they
in
basically...
spades, Idiocracy, yeah, would have it.
A corporation will sponsor a school, and then the school, in their examples of like the math problems and stuff, it's like how many bottles of Brondo does it take? Like if you drink 3.
I believe The Simpsons did a thing of that one where you drink so many
Simpsons,
bottles of Coke. How how many do you have left? Refreshed, partial credit. So I think it was like sponsored by like the pop stuff.
So there's one example how schools might not have your best.
But there are some sadly, and this is very sadly, real world examples.
I mean,
it's effectively propaganda in that case. If they're trying to teach you something that's either a counter to actual evidence or to help structure a particular narrative.
So in North Korea, they teach that the Americans never landed on the moon. In Iran,
in North Korea, they teach a whole lot of stuff about the Un family and their divine nature.
Yeah,
like how
Kim
the Kim Jongs and all that. Kim Jong Il wrote something like 400 works of literature before he was 2 years old, and Beethoven didn't actually write Beethoven stuff. It's not called Beethoven's sonatas or anything there. It's like Kim Jong Il's sonatas there.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's a massive amount of disinformation they're spreading there to help prop up the regime.
Yeah, in Iran they teach that the Holocaust didn't happen, and I'm not sure exactly. To be fair,
there's places all over the world that are denying Holocaust. It's just for various reasons that aren't really all that noble.
Yeah, and I believe in Pakistan and stuff they do too.
I believe there is a number of places over in the Mideast that try and structure a narrative against Israel, saying that the Jewish people are attempting to take over the world.
Yeah, so you get that
but
schools.
I have a hard time buying that on multiple levels. One, I don't believe it's actually happening. It would require too much coordinated effort to keep secret.
For a secret organization like the Illuminati or the Zionists to be
it would wind up being
world.
Just too hard. I mean, especially in this day and age where there's data leaks everywhere, it would be hard. That, and if you look at the Jewish calendar, they're at year 5,500 something. Mm-hmm. So that means after 5.5 millennia, they've taken one nation, the nation of Israel.
Well, only one officially, but according to the narrative, which I don't actually buy into, but yeah, according to the narrative, they already run everything behind the scenes. Like they run New York and the United Nations, which is in New York.
But here's the thing. New York is a very complicated, messy town. Beautiful town. Don't get me wrong. Go over on Google Street Maps and tour around New York sometime. You'll love it. But, it's not exactly a nation and all that. And depending who you talk to, the UN is incredibly worthless and accomplishes nothing.
Well, yeah, but all of our listeners in the Middle East will know that it's hard to get over. Like you're saying, oh yeah, just go to New York. I mean, it's
No,
hard
no,
enough
no,
for me to
go
to
New York. I say like tour around on the Google Street View of New York.
Oh, okay.
So unless your government is somehow suppressing like Google Street View,
go
around.
Iran might be.
Which is a little sad in that regard. Because I mean, honestly, there's a lot of fun places that like you don't have to spend a lot of money to go there. Like I wouldn't don't get me wrong. If I had the cash and the time, I would not mind spending some time in New York City. And touring around, seeing the sights, being a big old tourist.
Yeah.
But I got other things to do, and I can't just drop everything and go to New York. So you go Google Street Maps, and you just find a spot in New York and just start looking around there.
Yeah, but won't you, if you go to New York, won't you eventually sort of see just, like, shady limos driving by with the windows all up? And you're like, well, I wonder who's in there. And, like, what part of this city do they actually control?
That's like a third of the fun of going there. It's like, oh, hey, look, there's James Earl Jones. He's doing a Broadway production. Oh, look, I know this building. I remember seeing it in the movie. Who's in that mysterious limo? I mean, like you don't need to be in New York to do that. And you could just, like, any place where there's going to be a limo. Go to Las Vegas, and do the Google Street View and look around there.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Who's this strange guy? What's going on with that dude?
Yeah, so there could be stuff going on that you'd never find out about just by looking. Well,
yeah. But, you can still have a good time at, getting a sense of what, the place is like. It's not like it's some sort of secret hive city where everyone's working in unison to bring down the rest of the world against them.
But you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know that just by walking around the streets.
I don't know.
There are buildings that you just can't go into,
although a lot of the buildings you can actually Google up too. I mean, I saw one building under construction. I was like, ooh, I want to look that one up. Open up a new tab, Googled it up, took a look at what they were building on in there.
Yeah.
A lot of the buildings are very open, and in this day and age, it pays to have at least some web presence. So for instance, I was going through North Moore Street, and I found the old Ghostbusters fire hall. Yay! And I wanted to look at the building next to it, because the building next to it doesn't look like it's changed since the 1984 movie. And I'm looking around, and it's like, oh, it actually has changed. The ground floor is now a bubble tea location, but they don't have a web presence, so I wasn't able to see any images of what it looks like inside. So the building still looks quite old, but I imagine since they got a new business in there in the last 30 years, that they've had some sort of upgrade going on.
I find it interesting that I've decided to take the side of the conspiracy theorists on this one. Usually we're on the opposite sides. But do you find, a Jewish conspiracy, less plausible than things that we've talked about before, like Illuminati,
I find any racial-based...
the Bilderbergs, or reptilians, or...
Well, the Bilderbergs I can buy, because that seems to be like a small family sort of thing. But anything that's like along racial lines,
I think the Bilderbergs might also be the same conspiracy, because it's now that I
they're a bit of a wing of it, yeah, I guess. But that's the thing, you'd have to get everybody of a particular ethnic type to agree to this somehow, in some way, get millions upon millions of people to all agree to do this. And, you can bet there's someone who's going to be willing to pay for information that would out this conspiracy. So there is a very clear reason for not everybody to maintain it. Because, it's I know the conspiracy theories about it are like, oh yes, the Jewish people, they're good with money and they're all rich, right? It's like, no, I've seen people of Jewish ancestry. I don't know how devout they are, but I have seen that they are not rolling in the dough. They got bills to pay and debts to try and slough off over time, the same as everyone else.
That's true. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, there's different ways to view that conspiracy. There might be somebody who thinks that every Jew is in on it. Whereas
the Bilderberg sort of thing, they are financially well-off people. You cannot bribe them, and thus it does have a little bit more of an airtightness because they have a vested interest in maintaining power so that they can keep staying rich.
Yeah, but what if the Jewish conspiracy was just a few Jewish families? I think the Bilderbergs might even be Jewish. I'm not sure. I don't know, but for example, rather than just being everyone who's in the world who is Jewish is in on it. It's just, a few elites, and I don't know, I guess that makes it not a Jewish conspiracy. It makes it regular old conspiracy, I guess.
Exactly. That just happens to feature Jewish people.
Yeah. All right.
So if it divides on racial lines, I get very suspect on that because it just seems so hard to maintain that level of cohesion. Which is why I have my doubts that 9/11 was an inside job. I mean, this is a government that's not exactly known for being able to keep secrets, especially in this last 5-10 years. So you expect if anything was getting leaked out, and like accidentally released, boy, would the people wind up knowing about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've had Saudi ties leaked recently. I haven't really followed it too much.
Secretive. It was fairly well known that Trump's got huge Saudi ties. I mean,
no, Saudi ties to the hijackers.
The hijackers
in the government, not the government, not the rulers themselves, but this is fairly recent. In the last year or two, there have been documents that have been released showing that certain elements of the Saudi government were in on the conspiracy.
Again, that's not surprising. They've been working hand in hand with many terrorist organizations.
Have they? Yeah.
I don't mean to anger any of our viewers, but it's not the best government in that regards. I'm sure they're very effective in other regards, and they're doing many wonderful things for their people. But in the regard of that, no, they work quite heavily in bringing down their opposition. Don't become their opposition if you want to have.
I will just disclaim all of this by saying I don't actually know what I'm talking about, but okay.
Yeah, I don't exactly have a degree, in the history and all that. But from what I've been seeing and what I've been hearing and all the press releases, they do have some suspect stuff going on.
You're saying the Saudi government sponsors terrorist organizations in other countries?
Sell weapons too. Yeah. Have dealings with. I won't say they're masterminds behind it. They're the ones telling them, but they need guns. Well, yeah, they're going to Saudis. That's how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's true. But also, I mean, the Saudis get weapons from the Americans, from the United States.
So, too. What are you accusing the Saudis of just being the middleman in that regard? And then it's America funding its own terrorist organizations fighting against itself in some sort of conspiracy to try and keep the American populace further more paranoid as time goes on?
At the risk of, sending this podcast down a complete rabbit hole, maybe I do think that.
That's a very valid conspiracy theory that many people have. I respect that.
Oh, sure.
But that's the thing, though. It's education in a lot of areas winds up, having a narrative to tell, a particular angle.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about it. Yeah, and Saudis, they sponsor schools called the, Wahhabi schools, and that's part of how they...
Not to be confused with the Wasabi schools, where you learn how to, have a good palate for the hot spice.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, so I mean, next time someone's trying to teach you how to think better, trying to make you smarter, think for yourself for just a little bit, and how will following this, line of thought and learning to think this way help or control you?
Right. Well, I don't know what demographic our listeners exactly are. I think we have a range, but I don't know how many young people we have.
It doesn't necessarily need to be young people. Anyone that's trying to teach you something has a particular angle for why they want to teach you. Very few people teach for the pure unspoiled joy of furthering someone else's mental education. If I want you to know something, it's because I have a reason for you to want to know that.
Well, you're probably, on the teacher level, you're probably just getting paid, and not a great salary either, but it's a job, so there's that incentive.
A paycheck, woo!
Yeah.
The grand conspiracy is they want to get paid. In which case, then their attempt to try and teach you would hopefully be at the slowest rate possible in post-secondary systems to try and maximize the amount of time you're going to be spending at their institution, and thus the longer they're going to keep getting that fun, lucrative teacher money.
Well, I mean, I think there's something to that. I mean, there's a student loan system in Canada and the States.
There's what they call the the diploma mills, where they'll just sure, it doesn't matter how bad your grades are, we'll find some way to graduate you and get you that diploma. Just bring money.
Well, but yeah, in those cases, I don't know if your point about education being a tool for misinformation applies. If they don't care what they teach you.
Underwater basket weaving. I've got a degree in it.
Uh-huh. I was going to say, like, I have a personal example in that I did go to a Christian school when I was young, and they taught me, like, that evolution was not true, which definitely is an agenda-based thing. I guess the people who wrote those textbooks believed in it, so I don't know if they were intentionally lying, but it's definitely teaching a skewed perspective, point of view about the world.
Fair enough, yeah.
And Canada used to have residential schools also, which taught...
up until the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, which taught that certain cultural practices were not good. Like, people grew up with in their culture and their language, they were like, yeah, you can't do that anymore. So,
to be fair, we do have a pedigree on that, in that our parent nation, Britain, did the same thing to Scotland and Ireland for a long time. So,
oh, well, that makes it fine.
No, it just makes it, just allows the site for the abusive cycle to continue on down. So, just if Canada ever winds up, like creating a new nation, like somewhere out in space, just when they separate out, just keep an eye out on their school systems and make sure everything's on the up and up, because apparently the abuse, follows down the generations.
Yeah. I'll point out one other weird thing about the education system, though, and that is there's this perception in society, and I think it's not really true, but there's this perception that academia, high-level academia, has a left-wing bias or almost a communist bias. And that was actually, a big focus in the McCarthy era in the 50s and 60s.
They're still using that sort of thing for, like the Republican Democrat debates right now go down in America.
Yeah. So there's this weird perception.
Mind you, the counterpoint to that tends to be no, reality just has a left-leaning bias.
Yeah, that's some people say. But also, some people say, well, actually, the school system probably leans more right wing because we have right wing economics and stuff. But to get even more boring,
well, there is the notion that because Texas orders so many books, unless the schools want to pay through the nose in other states down in America, they have to go with the Texas style curriculum, which is heavily conservative.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's capitalistic and often colonialistic. Maybe not as bad as it was back in the day, but still they have stuff like who they choose to focus on often tends to be the sort of powerful white men in history.
And how what they did was right and justified and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, part of that is that sometimes it just didn't get written down when there were either non-white or female heroes, which there were.
Didn't count historically.
Yeah, they were often sort of written as sidekicks or not even written about.
I mean, heck, that was even referenced in the Back to the Future series of movies.
Yeah.
Where Biff Tannen's ancestor, the evil, Black Bart style villain, killed so many people, not including, women, children, and people of various ethnicities besides white guys.
Oh, yeah.
So it's that was even references to just how incredibly biased the informational, reports were back then.
Yeah.
Now, that being all said, there is something beautiful about a good, proper education. Teaching you how to think logically, how to think critically. And one of the best things that my education did for me was to analyze the source of where I'm getting this information from. Mm-hmm. So what used to be just you hear something and then you retain it, it now has an added factor of where it came from and how reliable the source is. So someone says you need 8 glasses of water a day to be healthy. And now my brain, rather than putting in 8 glasses of water a day is healthy, as a factoid, it says person, no confirmation, no attribution, says 8 glasses a day. Which, as it turns out, is very hard to figure out, the source of where that factoid came from.
And there's no real definite recommendation of how much water you should drink in a day.
Particularly because it has nothing bearing on the size of the body or activities. The amount of water I would need today, because I did very little. My daughter was a little under the weather. And she was a little sick this morning, so we didn't go out, we didn't do anything. I was a very low activity day. I'm not going to need as much water as, say, a day where I'm working. Or because my daughter threw up in the morning, she needed a lot more water. Like when you vomit, there's a lot of stress stuff going out in your body and a lot of changes happen. So she needs to drink more water than me, despite being, I'll say, about half my size, 1/8 my mass. So, yeah, like this little factoid, 8 glasses of water a day, has no bearing on factors such as your size or activity levels.
Mm-hmm.
Or does it count as water, metabolic water, stuff you can get from digesting fruits and vegetables? Like, what's the content? Does it have to be pure water, or can it be like a mix, like something like the water from coffee or pop? Does that count? And so, yeah, this factoid...
I believe it does.
As it turns out, according to some studies, yes, any liquid source counts as a good liquid source as opposed to none at all.
Yeah,
some are better than others.
Except salt water.
Even in some cases, salt water is technically better for you than absolutely nothing.
Maybe temporarily.
No, definitely not on a permanent basis.
I don't know.
If you're sick, just gargling salt water is great for you. Sort of thing. So like there's a use for it. Don't automatically knock salt water out of all your equations. You just got to find out when it's optimal.
Huh. Well, I didn't think that was the case,
If you're eating the right foods, sort of thing, then you can have some salt water and get away with it.
Well, how much are we talking about? Like a whole glass?
If that's going to be like throughout the day, then yes, along with metabolic water, you can make it work. As long as you're eating a lot of good, healthy veggies with high water content, we'll say cucumbers, watermelons, and the like, you can have something like a glass of water without completely destroying your kidneys.
A glass of sea. Well, I believe you can.
I won't say seawater because in this case, seawater is nasty. Fish have sex in that stuff.
Well, that's what I was thinking of. Okay, I was thinking of seawater.
We'll say salt water for the purposes of making this a simple, sort of.
But
thing.
salt water with as much salt as would be in seawater?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same thing as like with cats. Cats don't need to drink water if they're eating a healthy diet.
Yeah.
As a desert arid species, they can get all their water needs through metabolic processes in what they eat.
But we're not cats.
No, which is why we need to very much supplement with a very high liquid-based food diet.
Yeah, I'm coming down on, we'll have to look this up, but I'm coming down on don't even drink that glass of seawater. You could.
Chances are there's not going to be a natural situation where you're going to be, doing good with salt water, but you can make an argument for it, as I have just done.
I don't think that's...
It's not practical in a vast majority of situations.
I don't think it's ever... I think it's
never
helpful.
You think that because you've had some very good critical thought processes ingrained in your system.
I suppose,
Thanks to a good education, at least at some point.
I think, yeah.
And that's one of the best things that education has ever done for me, was add that extra levels of critical thought processes. So when I hear a thing, I can immediately dissect it and analyze it based on what I know, rather than just accepting it. But then again, this is based on a fairly, a comprehensive study. I'll go take a look at, the paper if they've released it for free. Chances are they don't. Spoiler alert, there's places you can go that have them all for free. I'm not going to tell you where, but you can look it up. So in which case you can, look and see further in it. So what could initially seem like, that can't be right. It's got a decent pedigree for its information. I can at least accept it as, a valid counter source. Mm-hmm. Which thereby makes me an absolutely horrible person for most politicians, because I just don't accept factoids. I actually analyze things.
That's true. Yeah. I wanted to say, too, about education, how do you... It's hard because the people doing educating is often with young kids and stuff, so they're very much in control of the information that comes in, and those young kids probably aren't going to hear our podcast in particular. I think
it applies very much within the post-secondary though as well.
Sure, yeah. I think at all levels, I agree. Yeah, it is a little critical thought. It is
a little harder at post-secondary stuff. The brain has had extensive time to work and mull over and be developed as is.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can still mold young minds,
Well, and the other, the key to critical thought, too, is basically some elements of it you automatically have just by virtue of learning other things. So you have all the pieces, but you don't necessarily put it into a cohesive worldview of this whole idea called what we call critical thinking and searching for sources and skepticism and stuff like that, because we learn it piecemeal, bit at a time. It's like, how do you find evidence? Well, you look it up in a book, and how do you find sources and this and that? We learn a little bit at a time.
Which seems weird. You'd think in any like really civilized world, we'd have like that as like a clear course. It's just like how to do the critical thinking, how to think better, how to think faster, how to learn quicker.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I actually think there's a lot to your conspiracy theory about the fact that schools are often set up by institutions, often governments, who are interested in teaching their specific ideology. Whether that's close to an ideology that I also hold, it doesn't change the fact that it is an ideology rather than specifically pure, if you want to call it, pure science, pure curiosity, pure
history,
how to learn,
unvarnished actions, removed from like a narrative of why.
Yeah, pure just how to think and how to discover and
because mainly it's not easy for young kids. Like I can understand why they effectively teach the same math class for like 4 to 5 years. The concept of math is fairly abstract, so for a young mind, you just have to do a lot of repeated work to get that in there.
Yeah. Well, that's true with a lot of subjects. It's memorization, rote learning.
Same with
like
spelling in English, or thing like the grammar and the rules and usage of all that is going to require a lot of brute force in that regard. You can't just like here's one rule like that I before E except after C fails half the time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just your beige Rottweiler blows that completely out of the water. It's just horrible.
Well, half examples, I don't know. I would be curious to see the what do you call it,
the actual mathematical breakdown.
The frequency of the words, like I think more common words might have I before E more often, but I don't know.
See, that's the thing. It's like it's very much not a proper rule, and why anyone still teaches that is like, it does not help out.
I don't know. I'm in favor of it still as a general rule.
I before E except after C or sounded as A as neighbor, way, weird, Rottweiler, beige. Yeah, no. There's so many exceptions to the rule. It will wind up hindering more than helping over the course of time.
No, I think it's still useful. I think it's good because
we'll
the more common words, like who cares if you can spell Rottweiler? Beige might come a little more often. Weird, if you're a
weird person,
you might use weird a little more.
But there's a decent amount of counterpoints where it's just like, because we accept so many other like languages words. Rottweiler being like a German, beige I believe being French.
Probably, yeah.
Weird just being weird. Why not?
I don't know where weird is from. Yeah. Okay.
But
I think
probably Scandinavian.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you use another
Plus,
argument.
there's people trying to graft the rules of like Latin onto the English language. Like you can't end your sentence with a preposition.
Right. Okay. There's one that I agreed does not do. Yeah, is not a.
You can't
rule.
do that in Latin, but to do it in English just renders some basic sentences completely worthless.
Although here's what I will say for these little rules. I'm fine with actually mentioning them to children and saying, like, this is a thing that people sometimes say to remember or to help remind them, although there are exceptions.
Then call them guides rather than rules.
Well, yeah, exactly, because
here's a hint.
You can actually make some interesting English constructions using that rule about never ending a sentence with a preposition. If you, like, it's just kind of fun to which I will give this thing to which I have much affection. Rather, you move. I guess I'm not making my point correctly, but you can make it interesting.
I like it. Oh wait, was that a proposition?
No, it wasn't.
Oh well, that's the thing though. Is like you got to have to even get these things. You need a lot of background information. By the time you learn every little bit, you should already have a fair grounding in the language.
Yes, that's true too, and then there's something to be said for just sort of an instinct that you have about language just by reading a lot.
or by speaking it with other native speakers, in which case, like, the double negative completely goes out the window. Historically, a double negative was like a reinforcement, and that's shown in a lot of other languages. I think it's Mandarin Chinese sort of thing, where you don't say thank you even once anymore. You double it up to show emphasis. In which case, the repetition is what shows the increased emphasis. It's like saying very, very, very. Whereas, to show how very, it's a little basic sort of thing. But in which case you say, don't do this. And it's like, oh, how many don'ts was that? Should I do it or should I not? It's like, no. Double negatives still qualify as negative. Just, it's doubly important negative.
Yeah, but there is a way to construct a double negative, like in some scenarios, that would be a negation of the negation, so it would be a positive. Like, I can't think of an example right now. I wish I could.
Because, we're not exactly literary masters here. But you can definitely see where I'm coming from, where, don't do, none of this, is saying do it. As opposed to, like it's just extra emphasis on don't do this.
Yeah, don't do none of that or something.
Don't do
like
none
that.
of this stuff.
But the other weird thing about those constructions is they often feel more informal and vernacular or even regional often. And so it is useful to have the knowledge of sort of a formal construction does not use double negatives. And that because then you can use these different registers. If you're in a more formal setting, you'd say, well, I'm not going to use, I ain't got none of those. I'm going to use a language that sounds more formal for this setting because it's more professional or more something like that.
In which case it breaks down into a matter of etiquette rather than proper, like literary, language.
Yeah, I agree with you that these
like
probably don't need
British
to be rules.
A for your tomatoes. If you want to sound extra classy, you'll have tomatoes with your salad rather than any of those commoner tomatoes.
I wouldn't use that, but okay, something like that. Okay,
In learning how to properly pronounce all your words, you can sound more erudite and classically trained in like any degree of skills and languages you wish to bring it through. The sciences you'll sound smarter in.
Yeah.
Whereas the standard style, which I normally speak, it doesn't really matter because as long as I get your point across, your point's across.
Exactly. And so I think it's useful to teach, say, there is this rule, in quotation marks, quote-unquote rule, quote-unquote. I don't
Style
know
guides?
But just call it a guide or say, like, if you want to sound sort of more proper, go ahead and use these rules. But you can break them if you need to.
While it is commonly regarded to be fairly crude to end your sentence with a preposition, this can be ignored. However, it is always considered bad form to end your sentence with a proposition. Be a gentleman. Don't hit on the lady. Come on.
Yeah.
So there's some cases where you can make it like a good reason why and why not to do these, but they shouldn't be hard on rules.
Okay. I think we've reached a consensus between the two of us. Oh, and I wanted to mention one other thing about education in general too is that my reverse conspiracy theory, my anti-conspiracy theory, is that I feel like almost any kind of books or education or any kind of storytelling is actually generally tends to push people in the direction of critical thought. So that even if somebody's trying to shove these things down your throat and say this is how it is. If you have a sharp mind and if you actually find yourself interested in these stories that they're telling you...
The more fuel in the system, the easier it'll be to hit that critical mass.
I think you will naturally have questions. Just a person, even in the act of learning those fake stories, will see, there's actually a little hole in here. And they already learned rules of logic in order to be able to put the story together in the first place. And then, they realize, the story doesn't actually fit. Kim Jong-il couldn't possibly have written Mozart because he was born here and Mozart was born here.
This song was playing for his father's coronation event.
Yeah, something like that.
How did it play before he was born?
So I feel like almost...
Bam! You, your family, and the next 3 generations of your family are in prison.
Well, that's the other problem, is once you speak out, they're like, he knows too much.
Sometimes it's dangerous to be a critical thinker.
That's true, yeah. But I feel like education tends toward that. Even the bad education, with bad intent, will lead people to good results in the end. Sort of. I don't know. That's my optimistic.
You can still get like a flower to grow off the compost heap, is what you're saying.
I believe that. I don't know. Do you have a perspective on that?
I would have to. Otherwise, nobody could have improved anything.
I guess because we started with no education, like human history. We didn't have books to begin with.
No one was teaching us to begin with. We were just smacking rocks together and killing animals.
Yeah.
So it has to build up somehow. So even ambient rural, sort of, like I just learned this from, my parents growing up, sort of thing. I never had any formal education. Doesn't make you a dummy. You can still, you can still get some good smarts out of that one, so long as they teach you the critical thought, whether formally or informally.
Yeah.
But yeah, good conspiracy notion is consider like why and where, and how the teaching is happening for you.
All right. Yeah. Cool. That was good.
I think it's pretty darn good.
Should we talk about what we've been up to
Sure.
personally?
Yeah, would you like to start there, Josh?
Sure, I guess I'll start with it. I don't have too much stuff. What was I? Oh, I played D&D, though, on Saturday.
That's right. You have your weekends off, you lucky guy.
I do have I have too much time on my hands. But, yes, I played... I didn't get to Dungeon Master this last weekend at Roll for Initiative, but I did get to play. I played what did I play? A Halfling Battlemaster this time.
Ooh. So that would be under the Pathfinder rules, huh?
No, this was 5th edition.
Oh.
D&D 5th edition.
Homebrew then, or have they released something I missed?
Actually, I don't know, because I didn't have the books. They just handed me a character sheet.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And I think it just came off the internet, so I don't know. Actually,
there's a lot of fun homebrew stuff, for 5th edition out there.
Now that I remember, I think it's just a fighter path.
Oh, okay.
It's like the fighter class, but one of the sub.
It's an archetype.
Yeah, or archetype, or whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. It was a fun adventure. Roll for Initiative. People can join us next time. That we do it once a month, and anybody's welcome to sign up. There's a small fee to join.
Unless you're working like I am.
Well, yeah. We went to, what did we do? Oh, we went to the Land of the Dead. Yeah, it was pretty exciting, actually. Pretty low level to do that, but I guess that was...
well, that's the one thing I've had with the experience I've done with you for role-playing. Despite their low challenge rating, those undead can pack a pretty nasty punch to them.
That's
Their
true.
immunities, and resistances make them pretty potent.
Yeah, they can be tough, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The other thing I did, I watched a bunch of Netflix, but the one I want to mention is it's called Stranger Things.
I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Okay, you've heard good things about Stranger Things. It's a very cool series.
What's the general premise for those out there who have never heard anything about it?
Let me see. What can I tell you without giving too much away? I don't want to do too much spoilers.
Okay.
A boy, 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old, goes missing in a small town in Indiana, in 1987. Mm-hmm. So this is a fun movie because I grew up. Well, I was 5 years old in 1987, but basically that was my era of growing up. So all of the technology they have and all of the toys.
That is one of the things I have heard great reviews of, is that they're very big sticklers to making sure everything is period appropriate.
Yeah, and the kids in the show, they play Dungeons and Dragons, so that plays a part in the plot.
Well, fair enough. Just remember, watch E.T.
Yes, I know.
They're playing it in there.
Yeah, they play D&D and E.T. What else? Stars Winona Ryder.
Yeah, which I'm quite interested to hear how it's going to help her.
Yeah. The acting is really, really good. It's really well written. It's got good, what do you call them? Good, interactions between characters. But
they've got good chemistry going between each other, for their romance, for their hatred, for their...
Yeah, the good... It
really feels like honest emotions happening, not like they're trying to act all distraught. Yeah. And
it's a monster horror creepy show, but it also probably the majority of the screen time that you're watching the characters sort of have real interactions with each other.
Which is what I like. I mean, that's why I love the original, like, Night of the Living Dead. The zombies weren't really the big reason. They were the reason to get the people together.
Yeah.
So if it's got a monster scariness thing, well, as long as it gets the people together to have these interactions, there you go. That's right up my alley, baby.
Another thing I like about it is the kids are interesting. The kids feel like the children characters. They feel developed. They feel like they're three-dimensional.
Which is good, because I always face it in a lot of TV series. The kids are just that little generic kid thing there, and then, like, whatever, they disappear after a few seasons when no one remembers them anymore.
Yeah, I think so. And and the show really, like, I guess a bunch of our lead characters are very young in this, but they're very good actors too, which is, I don't know how they manage to do. Maybe they're a little older than they appear. Sometimes they do that.
Well, that's the thing. It's like Hollywood's gotten very good about being able to have good quality young stars without having them sacrifice like anything like education.
Mm-hmm.
So once you got that going on together, then you can get the talent that you just weren't able to see previously. So hooray!
Yeah. So yeah, I really like just the whole show and it's spooky. It's let me see. As far as the whole sci-fi element of it and how satisfied I am with that, I wouldn't say it's 100%. I wouldn't say I'm 100% satisfied. It feels like a plot we've seen before a little bit.
It happens.
A little bit Half-Life.
Okay.
A little bit. What's the other one? Well, Half-Life. Secret World a little bit.
Oh, very nice. But that's okay. I mean, as long as they can make it their own, in the end it'll wind up being great because they made it their own.
Yeah, and they tell a good story with it.
Excellent.
What else can I say about? Did I like it? I loved it. I give it 12 out of 13 dwarves.
Very nice. Very nice.
I haven't seen the entire first series, or I don't know how many episodes they have, but I haven't seen all of them yet. But yeah, Stranger Things. Yeah,
very nice.
It's a good show.
That's nice because I was able to this week get the first 2 episodes of the Game of Thrones. The local library has them divvied up into 2 episodes because there's just so many people wanting them. Mm-hmm. I was able to finally get my copy. My waiting list when it finally went down. I'm at the bottom. I got it.
Yeah.
And I watched the first 2 episodes. Oh my god! I want like 12 seasons of this. I want like an infinite number of episodes.
Just from the first 2 episodes.
From the first 2 episodes, like what he was able to do for George Martin, it really feels like you're coming in midway through.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to be told, to be done, and the characters are just so. If I want to learn, I want to follow Ned Stark, man. I want to follow Jon Snow. I want to follow. I want to see what's going over with the Khaleesi. I want more of all of it.
Oh, good. So that's interesting. You already have Ned Stark, Jon Snow, and Khaleesi, Daenerys Targaryen.
Yeah.
Already introduced.
But that's the thing is like I have seen images of some of them later on in the series. I think the ambient internet stuff, right?
Yeah, spoilers. Ooh.
I guess. But that's the thing is Khaleesi, Targaryen, seems in the future like much more in control. Whereas where I see her in the first 2 episodes, she's effectively a very royal slave.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And
yeah.
so I want
to thinking all the way back to first book, first season.
So I really want to see the story of how she learns to master her own destiny. That I'm already intrigued about it, and that seems like it's going to be an amazingly good story to tell.
I will say, I think that character is really cool. Yeah.
There's a lot of boobs.
Yeah, there'll be more of that.
Yeah. Which I don't know. I guess I can go either way. There's a lot of boob, a lot of bum. But to be fair, on the bum shots, it did seem to be a fairly equal mix of male to female. So okay, what's good for the goose is what's good for the gander.
I think it's just people. George Martin said something about the reason that there's so many sex scenes is because he feels that that's a true part of sort of human history, and he based it on real world history. So he's saying, well, this is how humans are. Humans get naked. So
But yeah, like this is like the first episode I found to be rather thick with like setting and detail stuff. This is Winterfell. Here's the ice wall. This is this town. This is over here across the narrow sea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little like I always find when they have to give that exposition, it's a little thick to wade through.
Yeah, that first episode.
But it was completely worth it because in the end I learned more about it. I do have to be careful when I'm watching it, not just because I have a girl, a little 3-year-old girl around here. But it's one of those series where you have to pay attention to everything everyone says. So there really can't be any background distractions, because if you miss a sentence, you miss something very big and powerful. So I caught myself having to back up and rewatch that. Okay, it makes sense there. Okay. In the end, I give it 1 dwarf. But it's not like out of 13. It's just like it's Peter Dinklage.
Oh,
and so like bam, man, that guy, he really stole every scene he was in.
Yeah, the first 2 episodes he comes to Winterfell, right? Like
yes,
with the rest of
he comes with the rest of the family to Winterfell, and then he
Lannisters.
decides he wants to go see the ice wall. And so he goes off with like Jon Snow and the rest of the people heading up that way.
Yeah, okay.
And he just like. And this is the bit that gets me. Is like people say, this movie needs to have females in it, otherwise the ladies won't be able to relate to this movie. Well, you know what? I'm not a midget. I have no dwarfism or history of it in my family. But who am I rooting for? I'm rooting for the littlest lord. Come the end of everything, I would very much like for him to not be dead. Which is about all you can really ask for from George Martin, apparently. But I mean, just the first 2 episodes alone, plus what I've seen from little bits and pieces and images and all that, like this is going to be one heck of a final showdown. Like the 100,000, warriors crossing the sea. There's going to be dragons. There's like the white things, like the White Walkers.
Yeah, you already get White Walkers coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, heck, that was in the first scene, man. It's like, oh my goodness, there is some like this is setting up for like. Yeah, this is going to be, like, this final showdown is going to be one hell of a final showdown. I can already see that from the first 2 episodes. That said, it does have Sean Bean as Ned Stark, so, like, even without, like, any spoilers, I'm kind of certain he dies.
Oh, well, you've just...
It's Sean Bean, though. I mean, like, how often has he ever survived his darn the movies he's in?
At this point, it's probably fine if we spoil that. But I won't say anything more in case people didn't read into what we just talked about.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, it's Sean Bean. Like, I'm pretty certain he gets hired for his jobs based on the quality of how well he dies.
Well, but also this meme you probably saw this meme come around about the time when the first season came out, and the book had been out for a while. So people found out... They already knew Ned's fate from the book, and they found out that Sean Bean was playing the role, and they of course. I think that's when that meme first...
No, this has been haunting Sean for a while now.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, he dies very well, so congratulations for finding your little niche there, Sean. But oh my goodness, I loved it. I'm already waiting for the next one. Here's the thing, though, is like I have to only reserve it 2 episodes at a time. Sort of thing, and I don't want to like try and reserve then like I'll reserve the rest of the season, because then what happens if I get like the one and it's like no, I need the one before it, then it winds up becoming useless and I have to wait all over again. So I'm gonna have to very slowly give myself tiny micro doses of this one to watch it as I'm currently doing. That said, I am starting to make a point of going to used secondhand stores, in places that have movies and videos, and seeing if I can't find season 1 or any other season for Game of Thrones
for cheap. Yeah,
yeah. Well,
you could buy it at
$45 for retail price, but ouch.
Yeah, it's expensive.
I could take my wife to Montana's for that.
Especially considering, season 1 has been out for how long?
A while, yeah, like 6 years now, I think.
Yeah. Well, we're on season 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's copyright 2010. But so I was like, I quite enjoyed that. We got to see a movie this week. My family, we did our BC Day, holiday Monday. We went to the local theater, Silver City, and we saw The Secret Life of Pets. And I've got my daughter here, and she's going to help give a little bit of a review. So, Zoe, what did you think of The Secret Life of Pets?
I loved it.
Uh-huh. Was it a good movie?
Yeah.
Was it a funny movie?
Yeah, but a little bit scary.
Scary? What parts were scary?
Snowball was so mad.
That's right. Snowball was the rabbit antagonist who was trying to get them for a lot of the movie.
Yeah, and...
So yes, it was a little bit scary when they were getting chased by the evil rabbit, but he wasn't really evil, was he?
Yeah, and he was crying.
Yeah, well, I mean, he there was a part in there where he wound up losing a friend.
Uh-huh.
And that would make anyone cry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, who was your favorite character?
Gidget.
Gidget. Why was Gidget your favorite character?
Because she's so fluffy white.
She was very fluffy. How about when she was kicking butt? Did you like her then?
That was funny.
Did you like her when she was intimidating that cat?
Yeah, that was so funny.
Yeah. Now, what did you think of Tiberius? Because I thought the character, the predatory falcon Tiberius, was just an awesome character. Did you like Tiberius?
Yeah, I like Tiberius too.
Oh. So would you recommend everybody watch this movie? Who do you think would be most entertained by watching this movie? Mummies, daddies, or kids?
Daddies and Zoey and mommies.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's a pretty good recommendation. You think everyone would enjoy this movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I did find as an adult some things a little different than Zoe did. I mean, she clearly enjoyed it. I found it to be a fairly stock, generic story. I mean, there was no plot twist I didn't really anticipate.
Okay.
I won't spoil any of the plot, but it was fairly formulaic and generic sort of thing, which is why I wound up liking the predatory falcon bird. Because ooh, there's potential for something different going on here. Maybe some nasty pet gets his just desserts, as Tiberius gets his dessert. But no, that one never happened because it's a kids show, right? I mean, it's a kids movie.
Okay.
Yeah. But that said, it's never really about knowing how the outcome is going to wind up being. I keep saying that. Of course, it's a kids thing. It's all going to end up. Everyone's going to be happy in the end. It's about how it happens that makes it. And it was not meant for me, but I was still very much happily enjoyed about it. So it's woo! I was not bored throughout this kids movie. Hooray!
Okay, yeah.
Which is very nice. So all told, I don't think I could recommend it to you, Josh, sort of thing. But if you got siblings that are younger age, if you're thinking about taking them to a movie, I could recommend it as a movie they would enjoy.
Okay.
Plus, in the theaters, it did also come with a little Minions mini movie, which had all of us laughing. So yay! There's this nice little extra bit. And I wasn't too big on the Minions as a full-length feature film, but those little shorts are just the right amount of silliness for the characters.
Okay.
But yeah, as a generic movie sort of went, it was a very good, solidly made one. Very nicely done. Very, very good. The biggest thing that I think represents a departure from a standard stock style was the lack of enemies in there. There wasn't anybody I could consider to be the big bad villain. You got the new dog that moves in, sort of thing, to the old, the dog's place. They have some issues, like new roommates sort of stuff, right? But I wouldn't call either of them a villain.
Okay.
They didn't do actions I was particularly fond of. The big dog intimidating the small dog. I wasn't happy about that. It was ooh, that's not a very good thing to do. The small dog purposefully destroying some, the furniture in the apartment while the owner's away to blame it on the new big dog. Not very cool, dude. Not very cool. But I don't call him a villain for it.
Okay.
The dog catchers, I don't call them villains. They're just guys doing their job. They're not out there, I've caught a dog, now I'll get rid of his collar, and now he's a stray. And they're not doing anything cartoonishly villainous, things like that. They're just people trying to catch strays out on the street. They're just trying to do their dang job. I guess the closest thing to a villain would be the crazy rabbit, part of they have an underground society, literally underground society of of flushed pets pets, like the ones that are discarded from like owners that aren't quite as good as like the main character's owner.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Like I can understand there's room to show that not everyone's as good an owner as this example owner is. But there was a killed snake in the process of like the two dogs escaping from them. It was not exactly a good snake. It was going to bite them and wind up killing them as part of like an initiation thing. And even the rabbit basically says like, okay, yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. Okay, well, you did bite a whole lot of people, and maybe you had this coming, but it shouldn't have been on my watch. Sort of thing. So like the rabbit trying to avenge the dead, friend snake, I will not consider villainous.
Okay.
He was just trying to mete out what his version of what would be justice in this case, or which I guess for him, vengeance and justice is kind of a single alloy. So, but that's the thing is like I wouldn't call anybody in this one a villain. The character I dug the most, Tiberius, was at least at the start kind of villainous. He was trying to trick the dog in so he could kill and eat the dog. Ooh. But I don't consider him a villain. There was no villain in this movie, which I found to be incredibly refreshing and very interesting. There was clearly a lot of antagonists. Heck, the two effective main characters in the movie, the two dogs going out and about in the city sort of thing, trying to get back home, were antagonistic to each other. But neither of them were villains. And that was very, very nice. But it does seg into a topic that we have for today, the different flavors of villainy.
Okay, yeah.
Because last week I was watching the movie Invisible Agent, and they had three villainous characters in there. Two Nazis and a German. It was World War II, right? Two Nazis, for the German troops, and then there was Peter Lorre, who's supposed to play someone from, Imperial Japan. He's not Japanese, so it's one of those weird things where they'll play have a white guy cast as an ethnic role. Mm-hmm. But they played three different types of villains. The one guy was a bumbling buffoon of a Nazi. People wind up laughing at him, and he gets into accidents, and he's the kind of guy where you have the Invisible Man playing tricks on him, right? The kind of evil you can have be the bumbling buffoon. Then you have the real evil Nazi guy. The Nazis were not portrayed in any sympathetic light. But then you got your bumbling, kind of goofy, so how could these people take over, like most of Europe, let alone, their backyard.
Yeah.
And then you've got the evil guy. There's no Invisible Man tricks played to make him look like a fool. He tricks the Invisible Man and captures him in a room. He plays the Invisible Man for the fool. He's a sinister villain. And then you've got the Peter Lorre villain, sort of thing. He's sadistic but noble. In the beginning of the movie, the guy who's going to be the invisible agent is hiding his identity, and he's just like a paper guy. He's making papers and flyers and other stuff like that, possibly doing some printing, binding stuff. But Peter Lorre's character is there, and to get him to confess and show where the invisible formula is, he highlights what a very handy machine this paper cutter is. Shink! It's so very sharp. Shink! It's very handy, to convince the organized crime goons to put the guy's hand underneath there and threaten to cut off his fingers. But you know what? In the end, he kills I'm not going to call this a spoiler. It's an old movie. I'm not going to call it a spoiler at all. In the end, the acts of the sinister Nazi villain lead to his comeuppance. When Peter Lorre's character says, "I'm going to make a noble, honest person out of you yet," and he kills him, and then he kills himself for failing.
With a gun?
No, a knife.
Okay.
Doing a ritual like seppuku suicide sort of thing, because in the end, a lot of secret Nazi and Japanese agents in the U.S. had their identities revealed. And the book that held the information was released, and he considers it his mistake to have given it to the Nazi regime and have them lose it. So he considers himself personally responsible on that regard, and so he makes amends by trying his best to get the information back. And then once it's too late, he commits suicide. Once he cannot fix his mistake, he atones. And so it wound up being that, despite the fact that he was a villain, I found him to be noble in such a regard that, it's like his actions, well, against my own, I did not consider seeing as villainous and evil. Just, it's like, okay, he had his way, he did his thing his way, and now it's gone and over with.
Yeah, just that he's supporting an evil government or whatever.
An evil government. Well, I mean, look up what the Japanese troops did in the theater of war, and you can see a lot of nasty things going on.
Yeah.
But at least he conducted himself honorably about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like sadistic, saying, why don't we just chop off his fingers, sort of thing. But it's not as though he, was going out and just killing people randomly. His actions had a clear, logical motive. He was a person you could understand why he did what he did. Whereas the Nazis were power hungry, sabotage each other just to gain a higher rise to power. Ha ha ha. Yeah, both bad guys die for the Nazis in the end. I mean, a lot of Nazis die, sort of thing, during the movie. But they very much get their comeuppance, to show the classic, evil does not pay style.
Okay, yeah.
And I found that very interesting because, in most movies you have one big bad guy and that's it, right? Whereas this had 3 different flavors of evil.
Okay.
And I was wondering if I could get your regard and interpretation on this about having your various different styles of evil and what it means to have your multiple flavors.
I don't know if you have a specific question.
Well, have you noticed this? Is there particular flavors you prefer to use? Do you like blending your flavors to have the incompetent buffoon, who's actually an evil guy, in with your actual sinister villain? Do you like having your dishonorable backstabbing, horrible, a assassin fiend versus your a noble but evil blackguard?
What do I like?
Do you like to mix it up? Do you like having a single flavor of evil in your stuff?
Well, what stuff are we talking?
In your stories, in your fictions, when you're creating your fiction, when you're when you're partaking of your fiction, do you like getting the variety? Do you like only are you a big chocolate fan? Do you like only the one let's imagine this story to be like a 3-scoop ice cream cone. In which case you got 3 different flavors. I got Neapolitan, man. I got my vanilla. I got my strawberry. I got my chocolate. Do you prefer having like triple scoop of chocolate, one flavor of evil for your movie?
I guess I do have one kind of favorite kind of evil, and that is the evil person who thinks they're doing the right thing or thinks they're the hero of their own story.
The righteous one.
That it's necessary for them to do whatever they're doing. In order to, they don't like it.
But do you like the villain who will actually do whatever it takes as opposed to, the more honorable one? Like, I won't do that. I won't put these women and children and nuns and orphans and puppies, on the railroad track to lure the hero out. That would be despicable of me.
Well, yeah, I think there's 2 different flavors of evil in that one kind of evil is able to sort of overcome their stomach and their
baser instincts of weakness.
Yeah, their weakness. If something has to be done for them to achieve whatever goal they're trying to do, there is a kind of evil character who's like, no, this has to be done. I won't let my conscience get in the way.
So you do prefer the ends justify the means villain?
Yeah, and they're like, oh no, you can't do it. I'll do it myself. Grabs the gun from the underling who can't shoot the hostages because he's too human, and that are hardened, big bad guy.
They're non-combatants. I don't care.
I'll do it myself then, and I'll shoot you too if you don't. Yeah, do it too. So we got that guy. But yeah, we also have this sort of sympathetic, almost turnable villain who does balk at doing something horrific and horrendous, like shooting somebody, even whether it's shooting, innocent women and children, or just shooting somebody in cold blood who doesn't have a weapon, something like that.
It's I could kill them right now. They don't even know it. But it's not actually combat right now, so it would be dishonorable for me to kill them.
Yeah.
I'd have to let them know. So here's the warning shot that grazes their ear.
Yeah, but my problem with that kind of villain is that that villain is probably, he's a lesser threat because he's not going to be able to
do all the
finish
things.
His mission. What he's trying to do. He's not going to be able to, because if you take, don't kill that innocent farm boy, he's going to grow up and come back for you later. This is the evil overlord list.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, is that Can't he at least plead mercy? You know, like, hey, I didn't kill you. I didn't kill you when I had the chance because I have standards. If you want to extract vengeance, then put me on trial. But I did not let you live just so you could become some sort of like a vigilante, you know, pissant, killing whoever you think you want. If you want to do that, then go ahead and do that, and I will be the hero of the story, and you will wind up being the villain.
I want to spoil some Game of Thrones for you. Well, maybe I won't, because
there's all sorts of flavors of evil there.
This is something that
Trust
happens...
me, there's a few people I wouldn't mind hitting the chopping block, say episode 3. But apparently, you know, the little bastard lives. Boy, is it nice to see him get smacked, though. God, I love that, man. I would rewound that just to watch him get smacked all over again. Something about his face, you just want to haul off and crack at one.
Oh, you're talking about Joffrey?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, have you ever seen anyone who had just a smackable face?
Oh, yeah.
God. I feel sorry for the actor, man. People just want to just walk up and crack him one.
I know, yeah. He's
probably not that bad a person in real life, right?
Well, no, I read that he retired from acting after this. Not necessarily that it was that role, or... To
be fair, I mean, you know, he's, like, he ends at a high note, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's a pretty prominent role to go off on.
Yeah, he just wants to do other things. And he was a young guy, so I guess, you know, you try
apparently
it out.
The kid who played in the original Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, he retired after that role. Yeah. Didn't want to do acting all his life. He turned on prominent roles, became a vet instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as he's happy, that's fine. As long as the guy who played Joffrey is fine, you know, like, go for it.
Yeah.
Yes, as for the evils, yes.
Well, yeah, like the scenario that you described, I won't say which character it happens to, but yeah, it's something like that happens in Game of Thrones.
I'm not surprised.
But the other thing, like, I use the word turnable because also that a villain who shows a bit of humanity, often, I guess it's a trope or whatever, is that they have a possibility of turning around and joining the hero's side. Or
I guess it depends on how much they show on that one. Like, I remember Weird Al's UHF. The only good thing the bad guy did in that entire movie was give the homeless guy a penny. Mm-hmm. That's the only good thing he did. So yeah, he doesn't reform. Whereas a guy who continually acts, you know, like he's villainous, but he has standards. So then there's some things he won't do. Then that guy has much more potential for reformation.
But there is other flavors of evil. Like there's the flavor of evil who's like kind of a bully, and he realizes that the position that he's been given, the power he's been given, like there's no consequences for his actions, so he can just
bully everyone everywhere.
Yeah, he can as extreme as just shooting and killing at random. Sometimes not quite that extreme. Sometimes just being mean or denying people, you know, denying prisoners food or, you know, whatever else, something like that. So there's this, and that character, I think, yeah, it's a different. You definitely get more mad. It's weird because you get more angry at that person who just sort of does random things, as opposed to the guy who's like, no, this has to be done to accomplish my goal. My purpose is to do this, so I have to kill these people to get to, for whatever reason.
Well, it has been said that the person that does the random acts is technically a better villain.
Yeah. Okay.
Because they will eventually, you know, like stop doing stuff even for just a little bit. Whereas the person who believes he's doing what's right, he'll keep doing until he's completely exhausted every ounce, because what he thinks he's doing is right. The random, you know, like the warlord with his capricious ways will eventually, you know, like maybe have a day where he doesn't do that because he wants to do something else. But the person who believes what he's doing is good will keep doing that long after he no longer wants to, but he'll keep doing it because he believes it's the right thing to do.
I guess, yeah, if some sort of humanity creeps into the heart of the random bully, then...
Or just he gets tired and it's like, forget, you know, like randomly beating up people. I'm going, you know, like ale and whores now.
Well, I mean, like if he, for example, if he saw someone that he like knew as a child, and that triggered him, like he was about to shoot somebody, and then the hood gets pulled back, and that was my childhood friend. I can't kill him. And he's like, wait, I've been killing all these people who could have been People,
They were somebody else's childhood friends, just like mine.
Or if he shoots someone and then finds out that that was somebody he knew, it's like, oh, what am I doing? Like, I can't keep living like this. So yeah, you can have that.
The attack of conscience, whereas the person who believes what he's doing is right will justify that. He was my childhood friend, but he was on the wrong side, and if I didn't do that, then it all would have started falling apart again.
Yeah.
I would have backslid. It's harsh, but it had to be done this way. He made sure there was no other option for me but that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, the random villain is technically better from the perspective of the people getting hurt.
Yeah. Do we, like, is there a little space for us to talk about anti-heroes or
I believe we can definitely mention that.
Like vigilantes who are evil themselves?
As we did mention that sort of thing, I mean, like, you were talking about the villain who wouldn't do that sort of thing, you know, like, as opposed to, like, the farmer child he let grow up, and then instead of actually, you know, bringing the bad guy to justice, is going to mete out vengeance instead.
Mm-hmm.
So then who's the real villain?
Yeah, well, maybe, I mean, it's possible to have a story with every side has villains on it.
Every side is not a perfect side.
Or every side is, yeah, not perfect, yeah. Yeah. I think, like, in terms of what I like to watch on TV and stuff, I like those stories because I feel like I believe them more. I guess I feel like that's sort of reality in a way. Like,
fair enough.
That there's no real heroes in reality, except the stories we tell about them, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah. Although I suppose, I mean, there are, yeah, we can say that these people were definitely more evil than those people, and although atrocities may have been committed on both sides, one side was much more systematic about it.
This was the big evil, this was the little evil?
Yeah.
Hey, spoiler alert for everyone out there, that turns out to be the main lesson from all your history stuff.
Yeah.
It's not really good guy versus bad guy, it's more like, you know, like a jerk versus ass. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I just saved you all a whole lot of history. Woo. But yeah, like, well, we can work with like the anti-hero, like the good guy who kills, like the Punisher. In the comics is a reoccurring one. Ostensibly, he's trying to do good, and that he's, you know, trying to get rid of the mafia, organized crime. But the way he undertakes it is so violent and, you know, like drives people against it that he actually makes the mafia look better, because it's not like, you know, like the mafia is leaving like 30 people dead every 32 pages, right?
Yeah. And I guess the other thing, like, about just on a moral ethical level, that anti-hero, he's ignoring sort of due process and stuff, so he might catch innocent people in the way. And sometimes they don't care about that. They're like, I'm so committed to my cause of killing this greater evil that I'll take out.
Which is why
innocents.
I actually like the variance between both the Punisher and Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
Is I've seen the Punisher, you know, like do a lot of fairly indiscriminate shooting, you know, and killing, you know, for bad guys and anyone who's around them, because like you knew what you were getting in with when you were with this organization, even if you're doing an honest job around them. Whereas Wolverine, I remember him taking down a Mexican cartel, only to find after he's killed pretty much everyone on the property, that the head of the cartel is a lady who is very heavily pregnant and about to give birth. And like, what does he do? There's like no way he's going to like just let the baby die as he kills like the crime lord mama. Sort of thing. So he actually has an attack of conscience, whereas Frank Castle really would, like, doesn't have these attacks of conscience. It's not a thing that occurs for his style of storytelling. Yeah.
I wonder, like, is that our main tool for flavoring evil, is like the degree to which they have conscience or goodness or morality? Like, is that how we flavor evil?
To some degree, definitely. I mean, like, Dr. Doom does a lot of nasty stuff, but like, he does it, you know, like with honorable intentions and big boisterous stuff. He does not do things indiscriminately. When it was revealed that the mutant Zorn was actually Magneto in disguise, there was a huge fan backlash against it, because Zorn had instituted what was effectively, like a human Auschwitz all over again, to like exterminate those non-mutants. Whereas Magneto, actually having been from Auschwitz and seen those things, it would be like against his character. He's evil and he does evil things, but he would never put people in these sorts of camps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why they had to rewrite things, and now the Zorn thing is just a whole hot mess of no-go.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, in which case, yeah, Magneto is a villain who has standards. Oh, by the way, I did actually learn about why Magneto is able to be still so young and physically fit. He got de-aged. Yeah, he got de-aged, and then he got, instead of like aging back to where he was back into his, like, the prime of his life. So, like, the fact that he's dating Rogue, it's no longer like her going out with some geriatric, like, guy who is like, because, from the 40s, it's like 70 years. Like, he's not like a 90-year-old guy. She's not dating a 90-year-old. She's dating someone who's approximately her own age, physiologically.
Yeah, okay. Well.
So that makes it a whole lot less creepy now that I know that, like, he's not physically that old. He's just, like, has that much history behind him. So it's not that different than, like, someone dating Wolverine.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. Just a little side note of something I learned in comics not too far back.
Well, how old is Rogue at this time?
I put her under the age of 30 easily.
Under 30,
yeah.
Okay. Because, technically 2 adults shouldn't matter what age they are, but...
Well, I sometimes the age difference does matter a lot, even if the body's young. I have huge issues on the Twilight series with the age difference going on there. Sure, the vampire might look, 17, but he's like 100-something years old.
Yeah, okay.
That's creepy.
Yeah, that's...
It doesn't matter how young you look in that case. Like, that sort of, like, thing, like, oh, I'm dating a 19-year-old, I'm 107 years old. That's a little creepy.
Is she 19 in the series?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Number they effectively
19 would be...
I'm sure she ages throughout it, so at some point she's probably 19.
Yeah, there's several books, so, yeah.
But, he's still, like, over a century old, so that sort of age discrepancy is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But, it's just something I learned, it's like, oh, hey, he's not like she's like going out with somebody who's like really like creepy, like 70-year-old, 90-year-old body, like old sort of thing.
All right.
So, Magneto has standards. Dr. Doom has standards, whereas we can contrast this with the Daredevil villain, Bullseye. They've been rather strongly trying to make him out to be like the equivalent to like the Joker in the Marvel universe. This guy has no standards. There is nothing he won't. There's no like lower level he won't dig down to hit.
Well, on the topic of just evil in general, like I don't know how much of this I should bring up, but I've always felt that evil, like if you really kind of had sort of a full, clear picture of the whole story, and you kind of knew all the angles, and you were intelligent, and you had a good strategist, and you sort of saw your own future and the future of the people you loved, I could see like the evil path is almost never the one you should take. So in a way, like
there is something to be said about showing the level of power. But continue.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the ultimate flavor of evil. Well, every flavor of evil is some
effectively self-destructive.
Yeah, it's both self-destructive. It's in a way stupid. I don't want to say they're always dumb or non-intelligent, but there is something about being evil that's stupid. That's not smart. That is it's going against your own interests.
There's some like villains. Like if you make me a superhero and toss me into the setting, there's some villains I am not going to want to fight. Dr. Doom. If I ever have to go up against Dr. Doom as a superhero versus supervillain, I am not going to fight him with any fists. I'm going to challenge him to a rousing debate. Mm-hmm. And if he can convince me that what he's doing is not horribly monstrously evil, I will let him be. If I can convince him that what he's doing is self-destructive to his own goals, I believe I could convince him to stop. Because he's rational sort of evil. He's smart. Mm-hmm. He spent time as like the god of the whatever fractured little remainder of the multiverse there was during the Battle World saga that went on.
Yeah, I guess
he was able to convince Stephen Strange that out of the two remaining, that he should become like effectively, like the new High Father of the reality, as opposed to him, as opposed to Strange.
Okay.
And by Strange's own admittance, he makes a better god than he would have.
Yeah.
So he's very quite good at it.
I want to bring up, because like I guess I'm talking about sort of the possibility of redemption or where the path of evil lies, because often the path of evil, like once you start down it, then the consequences of turning back are greater than the consequences of going forward.
But it does make more of an interesting character. I mean, you go over and look at the Thunderbolts series, where, or I guess Suicide Squad also somewhat works in that regard. They're both like villains attempting to do something like either redeem themselves or work off some sort of prison time, or just generally try and make right through their actions.
Yeah. But I think you've brought up before in our conversations of this, what is the altruism game, or one of the game theory of retribution, like interactions, negative, positive interactions.
Yes. If you can get away with it, it's better to be selfish, in which case it would be better to be evil. When there's a series of repercussions coming back on you, it's better to be cooperative or heroic in this regard.
And at some point, it's worth your while as a good actor, like if you're generally on the good side or tend to be good, it's also worth it sometimes to forgive somebody
that one extra time.
One extra time, yeah, so that they have a chance to go, oh, okay, never mind, I'm actually going to... So rather than being incentivized to continue to be evil, they have a chance to...
Which I think would make for a great, story sort of thing. You find a few, evil guys that aren't despicable, like horrible evil people, and then you find some way to recruit them and use them for your own. Hey, look at that! That's the Suicide Squad and the Thunderbolts thing in a nutshell. That said, I wouldn't mind seeing more characters on that one, because I find a redeeming villain, or at least like a character with flaws, and some selfish goals, to be a much more interesting read than a lot of other ones. If I want to read about a character that's like almost like unrealistically good and like altruistic and doing the right thing for the right, just because it's the right thing, then I'll read Superman or well, I guess maybe not the most recent incarnation, but historically Captain America. Mm-hmm. They do good because it is the right thing to do, and there's some good storytelling you can do with that. But there's some very fun storytelling with stuff like Thunderbolts, where they're sometimes at each other's neck. It's like, I can't stand working with this guy. It's like, and their styles conflict.
Yeah.
In which case, it goes back to my multiple flavors of evil. Someone like Songbird, who started off as Screaming Mimi, was like a villain for a long time. She decided she didn't want any more of it. You get your sadistic, horrible, like completely irredeemable villain, such as actually no, sorry, most of them don't work. Yeah, a lot of the Marvels and villains Marvel villains just have at least some redeemable feature. But the one I was mentioning earlier. What's his face? Oh, I lost his name. Deadshot. No, wait, that's the wrong one. Bullseye. He's like just completely horrible. Like even the other villains don't want to work with him because he's just such like a brutal dick. And you can't trust him to not kill these people as soon as the back is turned, right? Whereas then you get some sort of other characters where it's like, Venom is in there every once in a while. And the Venom character, is like, he's historically been an evil character, right? But these days he's a hero. Yeah. With the right control, he winds up becoming a very good, strong force for good. So the story of like fighting the baser instincts, which would be the Venom symbiote, versus your more noble aspect of the human soul, winds up becoming a very strong storyteller. Okay.
Yeah, that's another flavor, that the
you can
godlike alien power that's like, well, humans mean nothing to me, so I just, I don't care. I just squish them like ants.
And in some cases, Venom needs to eat brains. Alternatively, he can also eat chocolate. So if there's no chocolate on hand, gotta eat a brain. Top.
Nice.
That's the thing, though. It's like we talked about the Punisher as like an anti-hero at best. Whereas there's a What If story where he got bonded to the Venom symbiote. And it was Frank Castle's like incredible will that forced it, from being a villain to, go along his line. So technically a step up for the Venom symbiote that way. Right. Maybe not a huge step. But these days he's with, I think it's Flash Thompson is the host. He lost his legs in war, like real world war, not just like, villains. And so the Venom symbiote gives him his body back as well as amazing powers, and Flash Thompson gives him more incentive and good reason to do this good stuff. For all his antagonistic ways, Flash Thompson always was a huge fan of Spider-Man. He razzed Peter Parker, gave him all sorts of hassle and hell, but he was always big on the Spider-Man hero. And so when he got the chance to be a hero, through the Venom symbiote, he says, no, we're not going to follow your base instincts. I finally get to live out my dream of being a hero. And it was a contest of wills, and the symbiote lost. But the symbiote's not really suffering. The symbiote's doing a lot of good these days.
Okay.
So it winds up telling a very good story that way, with some nice levels of symbology, I think, work well.
That's good. Okay, one other flavor of evil, maybe it's a combination of two, but the ignorant or brainwashed, or the villain who hates the heroes because they've been taught to since they were a child, or
Doomsday in some versions works well for that.
Like the young evil prince or something like that. Absolutely, I hate those heroes because their parents taught them to. Yeah. Or they're brainwashed or something like that. And then at some point during the story...
Kill all humans.
Kill all humans. Yeah, I guess that could be another variant of it. But at some point,
because the robots have been programmed to kill all humans.
Well, with the programming, it's a little harder to deprogram. Sometimes you can do that with either upload a virus or just...
To be fair, Captain Kirk has killed off 4 sentient AIs with no viruses.
Well, pose some kind of riddle or
logic
tell them
bombs.
What love is, or logic. Yeah.
Why did you slap him? Because I love him. Short circuit.
Yeah.
Crazy fun old storytelling.
So those villains can sometimes be defeated by saying, "Hey, we're the heroes, and we're actually not that bad, and what you've been taught is a lie, or you've been brainwashed into believing that."
Think logically. Have I done personally anything that would interfere with your processes, or cause you to attempt a retaliation under standard circumstances? No, then your coding of kill all humans must be faulty. Analyze for yourself and make a purposeful decision rather than sheer-based coding processes.
Mm-hmm. But that ties back to our education topic earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, kind of weird how we wind up hitting full cycle in this regard. But I don't even know if you can call the brainwashed, I guess in most cases lackeys, because if you're not making the conscious choice to do it, you're a lackey.
You might be a lackey, but that's why I brought up the prince, because it might be a pretty high-level lackey.
So. Well, congratulations. A high-level lackey's still a lackey, right?
Although, the prince, he thinks he's thinking independently. He thinks
many people think that.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it true.
He's fighting the heroes because he loves his father, as flawed as his father is. Like a bit of Stockholm syndrome in there, maybe, or
sometimes
whatever.
Just wanting to make your parents happy. It's a deeply ingrained response.
Yeah.
I won't lie, I use it to make sure Zoey grows up to become a better kid, more thoughtful, more polite. She gains my approval when she's a good girl. So it works.
Yeah. But you're saying that they're still a lackey, so they're still a greater villain.
It's like
somewhere.
It's like saying if you get put into a really good prison, well, that's a step up from being any other kind of prisoner.
Well, okay, here. How about this example? The Japanese fighters who end up on some Pacific island and don't know that the war is over. So
20 years later,
they're lackeys. But the challenge for the hero is to convince them that they're actually telling the truth when they say, the war is actually over and you guys lost. So
the war ended, 2 decades. That's something I never understood. It's like dude, you didn't get any word for the last 20 years? You know, like you didn't grow suspicious that something was happening on one side or another?
Yeah,
Maybe
I don't know how
that
believable that story is, but
it's actually happened in real life.
And also, translate it for our purposes to what if that happened in a sci-fi setting, like on another planet. Maybe they're getting automated messages from the homeworld or something like that.
Ah, not bad. Okay, or, I can see that. But I still don't see them as being evil. They're just misled. There's no malicious intent behind there that's actually theirs. It's the malicious intent of somebody else.
I guess, yeah, because they wouldn't randomly kill someone or like hurt an animal, unless that might be a separate characteristic they have.
But that's the thing is like they're just the media of this malicious hatred, as opposed to like one person like the big bads, like I shall enact my evil will. Like he's the one that causes the ripples in the water. They're just the water. I can't see them as being a villain. But
you can still have a pretty compelling story, like just involving that person and overcoming the challenge.
Oh, definitely. As a protagonist character, I think it makes for a great way to start off.
Yeah, and our great and powerful evil could be, dead and gone, but still leaves remnants for the heroes to. That might be our challenge: is the heroes have to fight the remnants, or something like that.
Yeah, especially if they wind up automating their evil.
Yeah, might be robots or something like that, or just drones.
I've uploaded most of my core objectives to this computer. All it has to do is keep putting out these objectives and make sure that the agents carry it out, and bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, it's sort of the whole mutually assured destruction. Like, if I get destroyed, I'll make sure that my agents get sent across the galaxy, and they'll all have, the instructions to carry out, like, major destruction.
And then the big bad was destroyed, and everybody else just, sold their stuff and went on.
Well, that can probably happen. But, I mean, what I'd like to see is that's an opening for a story of a new hero who has to somehow solve the problem of, solve the codes or whatever to stop these people from going out in the galaxy.
I could see that as a nice space-based story.
Yeah.
Not just solve that because, like some of them do get out and then it's got to be tracking them down on alien worlds.
Do you believe that robots can be evil?
Yes. Yes, I can. Because I watched Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
In which case it was a conscious choice for the AI to pursue, means that would wind up, causing the extinction of the human race.
Okay, well, that's evil to... I guess that counts as evil, or at least bad. But yeah, I don't know if you count the agent as intentionally being evil. That's the thing is,
Ultron was doing that because of his own design. He did it because he wanted to.
Okay, that sounds evil, yeah.
In which case, that's very much classic definition evil.
Although I wonder, do robots still count as robots, or shouldn't they be considered some other alternative life forms if they have enough volition to be... I guess that's the question of alternative
So then you'd want to bust a robot down to automaton versus, like mechanical AI.
Yeah, so I'd say,
synthetic
automatons
life form
can't be evil, but, sort of...
The same way that a brainwashed minion can't be evil.
Yeah.
So yes, the congratulations. The automatons are just like artificial lackeys.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
But I think we've gotten a fairly decent amount, into our podcast this week.
Yeah.
We should probably
as many stars as you think, or as many thumbs up, or whatever the system happens to allow. 5 stars would be fantastic. We'd super appreciate it. And tell your friends in real life too. Let them know about this wonderful podcast. Maybe your local gaming store might need something to play on the audio at some point. It's a nice thing to pass the time.
Maybe it just feels really lonely when they're doors closed, and then it's gotta do some cleanup, gotta do some stuff, man. Pop us in your headphones, man, so you don't feel so alone all of a sudden.
Yeah. If that's your game. Let me see. Oh, I'm on Twitter at Josh_Trelaffin, TRESLAFFIN. Is my Twitter handle. I'm also on Instagram. Same. Well, I think it's the same. I don't know. I don't use Instagram as much, so maybe not. And we are also on Patreon, too, if you want to look us up and contribute a little bit. It's by no means required, but we'd certainly appreciate it. Even a little bit. You can earmark it, say, hey, you guys go grab a coffee or a beer on us or something like that. Or pay for the batteries or our gas money or whatever.
What do you mean he's got to watch this Game of Thrones 2 episodes at a time? Here's $45. Go, get the entire first season.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice if somebody just, yeah.
I'd love it dearly. I'm not going to demand it. Oh, that's
no, we're not. We're just dreaming here. Of course, the podcast is free.
Although I won't lie, there's now a nice new longer addition to my Christmas wish list.
Oh yes.
Yes.
And there's social media. I think I covered all the social media. Yeah, in person, of course. But yeah.
So yeah, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do evil. I think ultimately, I always think evil is that whole self-destructive thing, so it's never really the correct path. So there's that.
I personally like mixing up my evils when I'm watching, partaking, or creating. I like to make sure that there's an evil that you can really rally against. Like, God, I just love to hate this guy, versus an evil like, if we could just get him around to our way of thinking, then we wouldn't even have to fight him.
Yeah.
So like having those multiple styles of evils, like, God, there's no way I'm going to make friends with this guy, but I can at least understand where he's coming from. The rational evil.
Yeah. Well, I liked what you mentioned near the beginning of having the different flavors all interacting in the same setting, same story, and see what happens when one particular member of the evil clan is more ruthless or more.
Watch the hierarchy settle itself out.
Yeah, and just see what happens. And then see what happens when the heroes can finally infiltrate or contact or do whatever they have to do, and see if they can either turn one of them or...
Because that's the thing, it's like the bumbling buffoon guy, like, he was used as, he was like for like an ally for just a little bit before he inevitably turned coat. But he was needed for a bit, so, it's like, oh, okay, like, we got a mutual enemy in this case, so bada bing, bada boom, like, alliance up. Didn't last. I don't think anyone was shocked when it didn't last, but you know what? There you go.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing we didn't really mention, is that sometimes there are characters who can be pliable. Like, I've seen this in another show I watched recently. Character can be pliable in one way. It's like, oh, the good guys get a hold of him. Oh, yeah, don't you have these values about, goodness and justice, and you don't want to see people die? And he's like, yeah, okay, you're right. And so he goes with the heroes, and then he gets back with the villains after a while, and the villains are like, what? Like, we've been in this together for all these years. And he's like, you know what? You're right. I am loyal to you. So he turns back again. So there's flip-flopping back and forth.
Flip-flopping or playing both sides?
I mean, maybe it is. It's always a dangerous thing, because then you don't know, like, if basically you're betraying...
Then you have no real allies.
Yeah, you're betraying your evil allies, and then, now you got nobody. Yeah.
It happens.
Okay. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. Yeah.
I dig it. So yeah, like, that's the thing, is like, I think just to have just the one flavor of evil, it works well for smaller things. You want like a short, fiction sort of thing. You want a simple story, like a kid's story. Like, you don't need 3 big bad wolves.
Yeah.
You only need 1 for the shorter ones. But if you're going to be telling like something more full length, when there's room for more evils, add a little bit more. Vary them up. Don't make it a uniform evil. Show all its many horrible faces.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like, or if you want to tell the story, like the zombie stories we always kind of mention, is that the story's never about the zombies. The zombies you don't see their motivations or what kind of evil they are.
Their motivation is brave.
Yeah, so they have a very simple, straightforward, so you don't have to spend a lot of time on the zombies, so you focus on the interactions between this one side. And sometimes there could be heroes and villains within the humans.
And, as a side note, sometimes when you get the right kind of evil, you root for them as opposed to the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are movies I've seen where I disliked the protagonist so much I rooted for the bad guy.
You know what I would like to see, though, would be fun, would be a zombie movie where you actually see the relationships between the zombies. Like, if that could be possible.
Like
I think you could have a little bit of that.
They still have some sort of sentience going on there as opposed to just shambling, like, find, living, eat, brain.
I wonder if you could just like little tiny stories about how they're like, this one's jostling this one a little bit too much, and this one's like, and like, stop that. But not like.
And then later
conscious.
on, when they're busting into the mall and someone shoots that zombie that was like jostling the other, suddenly finds that zombie was bumping into is shoved it in front of the way and is using it as an unliving shield.
Yeah, something like, so you have little stories within the zombie world of like, like how do the zombies actually, mesh together and like wander around as a horde?
Like this, you could do like the zombie that's like jostling the first one. Like when he was alive, he was just like an obnoxious jerk with no sense of like space, and he keeps bumping into go on there, and he's doing it as an undead, and then bam, he finally gets his comeuppance. Not just after dying and coming back as the zombie, but being used as the unliving shield for the other zombie. Yeah, tell that fun little mini story going on in there. I think that's great. That adds a nice little extra depth, and it winds up being something that you can remember. It's like, I remember that. When he puts a zombie in front of the other one and he's using it. Yeah, that zombie finally got it. God, I hated that guy. I'm so happy he got killed, and then I'm so happy he killed again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there could be flavors of evil even within zombies.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
If you're willing to look in and find a way.
If you want to, yeah. Okay, so that's a podcast.
You'll hear from us again in another 7 days.
I've been Josh Trelevin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
It's in mine.